All right. So like I said, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit, kind of give you a very, very brief overview. Now, we've already had a painting project before, right? We did our halftone project, and with that halftone project, we talked about the whole idea of using kind of our primary colors, right? Primaries. Now, in the world of color, right, before we talked about CMYK color and RGB color. You guys are smart enough. We've already talked about the idea about how your human eye, the actual eye itself, only has RGB cones in it, right? We talked about how kind of yellow is kind of a lie, which is fun because it's right here in front of us. We've also talked about how the printing industry uses interchangeably kind of an RGB style versus a CMYK style. And of course, CMYK stands for what? C. Awesome. M. Yep. Yellow. I ruined that one. And K is what? Key or? Totally, you guys are killing it. All right, so in essence, yellow. So in essence, what I've got here are our main colors, right? Again, all this stuff, pretty easy peasy. Now, in the world of paint, we kind of use our CMYK style. In the world of light, the way light reflects off of objects and stuff, it tends to go more in the RGB style because, again, that's how your eye interprets the light, and there's a whole lot of sciencey fun stuff. And if you find any interest in that, go take a science class. Okay, so there's that. So all of that falls under the umbrella of hue. So hue, I love hue. Hue, see what I did there? Hue is just a fancy word for color, basically, right? So hue explains like, oh, what hue is it? Oh, it is red. Oh, it is blue, right? Hue, color, good. Then we have value. Now, if you remember way back on our very second project, we talked about the value scale being the scale from light to dark or tint to shade, right? So if I said, what is the hue of this red? Well, the hue is red, but the value of this red is maybe like a medium light, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And that value explains the contrast being the separation between the light and the dark. So if I had, for example, a monochrome style paint, where I have two of the same color, a dark red and a light red, the difference between the dark and the light red would be its contrast. Okay, so again, a whole bunch of vocab words that you should already know, or at least kind of already have in your brain, but that's the boring stuff, so let's do something way more fun than that. Gone. Okay. Right? It's fun to throw things. Okay, so here we go. So, what I want to talk to you guys today about is really one very simple idea, which is the concept of potency, right? When I was in undergrad, we had, my one teacher tasked us by making a value scale. Again, something you guys might have done, maybe in middle school. It was not a hard project. And I remember distinctly, this is a true story, I remember distinctly there was a student in my class who had racing stripes on his pants. He was super cool. So that's a lie. He was not cool. But he was very scientifically minded. So much like science, he thought that he could scientifically answer and solve the way a value scale works. So what he would do is he would take his black and his white, and he would add 1 part black, 1 part white. Then he would do it again, 2 parts black, 1 part white, 2 parts white, 1 part black. You get the idea. So he would kind of mathematically make this value scale. The problem was all of his colors basically turned out to be like crap gray. Why? What's that? Fair, kind of. Any other thoughts? What do you guys think? Why did his scale come out basically all the same shade of gray? There wasn't a darker gray or a lighter gray. What do you think? Well, the proportions were the same as far as, again, if I took 2 black for 1 white, black is stronger than white. It has a higher potency, right? This black is really intense. White, I put a little bit of pink or a little bit of red into it and it's gone. The white is gone, it's now pink, right? I put a little bit of red in that black, nothing happens. The black doesn't give 2 craps. You know what I mean? So understand that happens with all of our colors. There is a certain level of potency. So for example here real quick, if I take, I'm going to use the butt end of my brush here. If I've got some yellow, or at least the lye that we call yellow, and I've got some blue, and I want to make green, right? Now, which one of these two has a higher potency? Blue, totally, right? It's darker, it's deeper, right? So if I take 1 part yellow and 1 part blue, I'm going to end up with a kind of blue mess. Blue totally eats away at that yellow. So I have to take I gotta take 8 parts blue or yellow. Let's just spill this whole thing and just make a mess, right? And then I'm gonna take bink, a tiny little schloop schlup is a technical term, bless you. And then look at that, very quickly, bless you again. I get, look how quickly, I mean, that blue really overtakes it. Now, it is still green, which is nice. But, I mean, I had to use my entire cup of yellow and a little dollop of blue just to get a kind of green, right? So understand the potency, of blue and how much it can very quickly ruin your paint mixing, right? I mean, it just eats it, right? All right, good. So, I didn't bring paper towels. All right, so next step. Now, if I wanted to, I could sit down with my nice little color wheel that I have, right? And I can start mixing up things. Obviously, I've got my primaries here, so I want to make my secondaries. It wouldn't be very hard. I can take my yellow and take a little bit of blue, and I get, ta-da, green, magic, right? I can do the same thing over here. Again, red is obviously a little more potent than yellow, but not a whole lot. Blue is still pretty powerful. And I can mix it, and I'll get some purple, absolutely, right? So again, mixy-matchy, you guys get the idea. This is not rocket science. And of course, I could do the same with orange. Now here's the key. A lot of times what you're going to be tempted to do, if you want to get like, say for example, if I want to get like a dark purple, right? I'm going to be very tempted. I'll say, oh, well, I'll just take some black, because that makes things dark, right? There's an insane amount of black. And mix it in with my purple, and what do I get? I get a black, crappy mess. I mean, this is not, that's not purple, I promise. Let's see. This is like butt. I get the color butt. That's what I get. There's a little, if I thin it out, eventually I get a little bit of like kind of purple, but it's not great. The key is this. Try your best. Now sometimes you want to use black and white, and it has its advantages. But a lot of times you don't want to, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times adding black or white are simply going to dull your picture, right? That's all it's going to do is dull it, right? So instead of making a darker purple that is still vibrant, right, I get kind of, but I don't want that, right? So instead, I'm going to take a whole bunch of red there. Take just a little bit of blue, get some purple going on up in here. All right, maybe a little bit more blue. Now, if I want a darker purple than what I already have, because right now, I don't know if you guys can see, but right now it's kind of a magenta-y, I don't know, like kind of a burgundy almost, like it's not totally purple. A little bit purple. So it's good, but it's not great. I want it to be dark, right? So what I can do is I can just add more blue, right? That way it's still sticking into the hue. It's still a color, right? I'm not adding black to it, but I'm going to get a progressively darker color. I don't know if you guys can see that difference totally, but there's a pretty good difference. But at no point in time did I add black to it. And again, if I want it darker, I'm just going to add a little bit more blue. Not a lot. It's still pretty potent. And I can just keep going down this list, getting darker and darker hues of purple. So my value will change, right? So you can kind of get this cool color shift as we go down the list. And again, this idea is perfect if you're doing a monochrome painting, which all of you will do at least for one of your squares, a monochrome painting. So again, don't think to utilize black or white. Sometimes you might want to use it. Sometimes if you want like a grayish version, if I wanted like a really grayed out purple, great. Add black and white, you'll get a grayed out purple. But unless you want the color gray somewhere in your color, don't use black and white, it ain't worth it, okay? So, part one, check. All right, so there's that. Last thing, as far as color goes, I talked to you guys before about, with our halftone project, on how to make the color brown, because brown out of the tube looks like duty. We want to make our own brown. So, surprise, what colors do I need to use? I've kind of blown the secret here. What colors do I need to use to make brown? Yay, all of them, right? Yeah, all the primaries. Because again, if you think about it, what I need to do to make a brown is simply mix a primary with its secondary color. Well, if I've got secondary, let's say green, and I've got the complementary of green, which is red. Surprise, that's 1, 2, 3, that's all of them. So, if I wanted to mix and match, now the key is this, when you're making brown, is think about, again, potency, right? If I take one of each of these, right, I end up with basically blue, maybe dark purpley blue, right? That doesn't help me, it doesn't help you guys. So what I want to do is kind of get a good base of yellow. Okay, kind of add in a little bit of red. I'm going to mix that in first. I'm going to get kind of a good orange going on. So again, I'm mixing the complementary color of orange, which is blue, right? Okay, so there's kind of a nice orange. Again, we're just using tempera paint, so it's nothing fancy. So I get my kind of tangerine orange going on, right? Cool. Orange, right? Now, I want to add blue, which is the complementary color. But again, remember, blue can totally blow out your painting, right? If I want to get brown, I just need, start with a little bit. You can always add more. You're going to see real quick how that little tiny bit of blue changes and shifts. So again, I get kind of a dark orange. Right, okay, maybe a little bit more. And it's going to keep going down the chain from dark orange into dark or orange. Maybe a little bit more. The one thing you want to be careful about, and this is why I'm saying go back and forth a little bit, you want to be cautious about just dumping a crap ton of stuff into a cup, because you'll end up wasting a bunch of paint. You're allowed to mess up. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, you want to be careful as far as just out and out wasting paint. Okay. So there we go. I've got a pretty good brown color. Okay. Brown. There we go. If you have any difficulty mixing up brown, it takes a little bit of finesse, but you guys will totally rock it out as you go along. But if you need any help, give me a holler. I'm happy to help you out along the way. Okay? But again, understand how much yellow I put versus blue versus red. Right? All right, so potency is important. All right, so the last little stepo of the process here that I wanted to talk to you guys about is not just mixing your colors, not just talking about monochrome versus complementary and all sorts of stuff. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the idea of a couple things here. Brushes, right? So this entire time I've been painting with this brush, which is a absolutely miserable brush, because look, it dries out very quickly. See, I get these dry little things here. It just doesn't blend well. It's really frustrating how crappy this is, and that's because it used to be a really nice brush, but I don't know if you guys can tell here. Hold on, I'll focus. There we go. It's pretty miserable. Actually, somebody had taken some scissors to cut this off and get it all chippy looking. Now, if you want that kind of dry brush, kind of messy look, awesome, then maybe this is the brush for you, or cutting a brush would be perfect for you. But there are lots of other brushes in the known universe. This class obviously is limited on our brushes, but we'll talk about some of the basics, right? So we've got just a basic kind of round brush, right? You can see because it's round. I know. I come up with such, it's fascinating. So again, a round brush is going to give you a certain kind of technique, right? Kind of juicy at the beginning and kind of dry at the end. Kind of dry. So think, if you wanted to use something like that. Now these are really, really big, obviously. If you're doing fine detail, you don't want to use a Mondo brush. We've got this one here, which is a flat brush. Personally, for me, I really like flat brushes. I think they give a really cool kind of look. Yeah, it's pretty bold, right? You can get a lot of paint on there, right? It's pretty bold. If I wanted to get like a nice bold, just kind of background red or something, this might be the brush to do it with, right? So again, knowing your brushes is important. Finally, again, this one doesn't really come into play for this particular project, but it may down the line. This is a fan brush we've got, and he's just kind of, well, he looks like a fan. That's where the name comes from. And what's neat about a fan brush is it'll give you this kind of cool texture. So if I wanted to do like grass or something, like a tidal wave, I can kind of play around with this brush. I can also, what's really neat is get a little on one side, a little bit of paint on one side, get a little bit of a different color on another. Oh my gosh. And look at that. Oh, how is it possible? Right? It does. Oh, yeah. So, again, if you need some quick little texture, just a little bit of something, a fan brush might be the one for you. But probably the one that you guys are going to be working with, which is basically the same one that you guys worked with our halftone, it's just kind of a basic pointed round brush. So your basic, what you imagine as a paintbrush, that's what you're probably going to be working with. Now, a couple things you want to think about, and these are things that you guys, I'm sure, already came into contact and tackled with your halftone project. As you're going along, as you're painting, right, you want to make sure there's enough paint on your brush, but not too much paint, right? So the idea, if I got like this, if it's all globular looking, probably too much paint. If it's looking it's like three-dimensional, that's too much, right? Vice versa, let me get some of this here. Vice versa, if I like get just a little tiny bit and I'm brushing, and you're getting these weird kind of flaky brush stroke edgers, right? Right, this little, that means you don't have enough paint on your brush. So you want to be somewhere between these two, right? And again, that's going to come down to you playing around a little bit, practicing a little bit, and kind of feeling and vibing on what is too much and what is too little. But you'll totally figure it out, I promise. You guys are highly intelligent. Well, some of you. Okay, so there's that. Let's see here. So I went through and did a quick version of your project. This is obviously just 2 squares, but I wanted to do kind of a very, very shortened, abbreviated version. So I've got the word hi, you can see, H-I. One is serif, one is sans serif, right? So for the use of this project real quick, I'm going to do complementary colors on this side and monochrome on this side, right? So let's say, let's see here. Here's some complementary colors. I've got my blue and my yellow from the previous demo. So I'm going to start with my complementaries. Now, in my universe, there are different schools of thought, but in my universe, I prefer to work from light to dark, right? The reason I do that is because I want to be able to paint over whatever I need to, right? So if I happen to mess up, let's say I want the background to be yellow and the object to be blue, right? Let's say as I'm painting, right, tra-la-lee, tra-la-loo, I've got other colors in here. Oh, I go over my lines. Crap, I am the worst painter in the universe. God! I probably will fail most likely, right? The other idea that I could do is wait until this dries. I don't want to do it while it's still wet, because then I'll start mixing my colors, and that's not good. I'm going to wait until this dries, and because it's tempered, it's going to take, like a second. And then I can use my significantly darker, more potent blue, and I can paint right over top. Again, notice, I'm going back to get more paint often. When I start feeling like it's dragging a little bit, when I start getting that, like, dry, brushy look down here, right? I don't want that. So I'm going to go back and get some more paint, and very delicately, very much. Okay. There we go. So something like that, right? So again, that darker color can easily paint over top of that lighter color, right? I can do the same thing with a monochrome idea. So in a darker or a lighter color. Now in this case, maybe I want to do blues, right? Well, blue is already a primary color, so if I want to do like a darker blue and a lighter blue, I could actually use some black or white if I wanted to, right? So I'll take a little bit of black. Remember, black is super potent, so we don't need a lot. I'll get a pretty good dark blue. Then vice versa, I'm going to get a lot of white, because again, remember, white is not so potent, so I'm going to get a lighter blue, right? Cray, cray. Again, I'm going to work light to dark. If you find for yourself that you prefer working dark to light, you're welcome to. You just have to have a little bit more of a detailed hand, because you don't want to mess up, obviously. So I want to do like a light blue background for my mono. You want to be careful, of course. I'm a big fan of painting with mono, but you don't want to get the disease mono. So try your best not to. Don't kiss strangers. That's a health lesson for you there, kids. So I'm going to go through, kind of buzz through, do my lights, let that dry off. Obviously, I'm not right now, but pretend. And then I would go through, load up my brush, load it up, and very carefully, taking my time. Now, the big key for this game that we're playing here, the big key is taking your time to get a nice, crisp edge, right? That's the whole point of this project. It's not a hard project at all. Your halftone was a lot more difficult than this. But the key to this game is controlling the paint. So see, I got like a little shloop right there. I don't know if you guys can tell. It's not a lot, but it's there. I want to be able to go back through, maybe again, load up that brush. Oops. Come at it from a different angle, perhaps. Couple of techniques that you can do. I can kind of prop my hand up on like my pinky if I have wet paint underneath here. I can also use my other hand too, or I can even use, this is kind of silly, but I can even use like a paintbrush by kind of propping it in the corner and resting my hand on the paintbrush. That way I'm not resting on the paint. I can kind of give myself a nice crisp edge. Just like so. Okay? So kind of clean that all up. Okay? The last note that I'll make, and then I will wrap this up. As you guys are painting, keep in mind that I've got a butt-ton of, that's a technical term, I've got a whole bunch of paintbrushes back there. Not all of them are superb. If you come across a paintbrush, for example, that at one time, like this poor guy here, at one time was used for glue, I guess. I don't know why. But at one time was used for glue. I'll see if I can focus on it. And while it was used for glue, somebody let it dry, and it is basically permanently destroyed. It looks like it's got bedhead for life. Please, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Just throw him away. Also, if you come across like a big brush for some reason, you want to do like a cool background, and maybe like the nice little middle part here, maybe that comes off. Or for example, maybe this happens. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, God. It's basically what happened to my hair years ago. If for some reason a bird could use your paintbrush to make a nest, probably this is not the best paintbrush to use, I would assume. If this is happening, again, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Please throw it out. If you come across old markers that are broken or dried up, throw them out. Right? Please, you're not going to hurt my feelings by using the materials that I bought for you to use. That's why they're here. I'm not the kind of person who puts plastic over top of my furniture. Please, sit in my furniture. Use it. All right. So any questions with paintbrushes? No? Any questions with paint? Pretty good, right? If you guys have any other questions, obviously talk to me individually. But you have today, you have tomorrow, and that'd be it to work on this project.